Welcome to Chosen One. If you've been feeling like something massive is about to shift in your life, it's finally time to uncover everything, because it's happening. Have you ever wondered why your breakthrough seems delayed while others move forward effortlessly? Why the silence feels so heavy? Why the isolation cuts so deep? This isn't just another motivational message. This is your divine appointment. In this powerful 60-minute journey, you'll discover why the delays weren't denials, why the silence was actually divine positioning, and why every closed door was protecting your destiny. You'll learn the prophetic timing behind your struggles, how to step from waiting into bold action. And most importantly, you'll finally understand your true identity as branded by God. Your wilderness season is over. The fog is lifting. The blueprint is becoming clear. And what hasn't moved in years is about to shift in days. If this resonates with your spirit, hit that like button as an act of faith. Subscribe for more life-transforming messages, and share this with someone who needs to remember they're chosen. Your moment has arrived. Have you ever felt like you're living in a world that wasn't made for you? Have you wondered why everything that comes so easily to others feels like an uphill battle for you? Have you asked God why your breakthrough seems delayed, your prayers unanswered, your destiny on hold? Stop scrolling, stop searching, stop wondering. What I'm about to reveal to you has been hidden until this very moment. And chosen one, I need you to understand something that will shake everything you thought you knew. The silence you've been experiencing, the isolation you've been feeling, the spiritual attacks that have come against you when you were just trying to do the right thing. None of it was random. You are here, right now, at this exact second, because heaven orchestrated this divine appointment. Let me tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I need you to hear this with your spirit, not just your ears. The delay you've been experiencing wasn't a denial. The silence wasn't abandonment. The isolation wasn't punishment. What you've believed was delayed, denied, or destroyed is coming into the light right now, in this moment. And I know what you're thinking. You've heard these words before. You've been told to keep waiting, keep believing, keep holding on. But something feels different this time, doesn't it? Something in your spirit is stirring. Something is breaking through the fog, and you can't quite explain it, but you know. You know that this message found you because you're standing at the edge of the most significant shift of your entire life. The storm is about to break. The pressure is about to release. The fog is lifting. Before we go any further, I want to say something from my heart. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let that be between you and God. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't about me. It's about what heaven is releasing over your life right now. Now listen carefully. There's a reason you felt different your entire life. There's a reason you've never quite fit in with the crowd. There's a reason people have misunderstood you, rejected you, even attacked you when you were doing nothing but seeking truth. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. That difference, that isolation, that spiritual sensitivity that makes you feel everything so deeply. It wasn't a curse. It was a marking. You are branded by God. And I'm not talking about some religious title or church position. I'm talking about something far more profound. Something etched into your very DNA before you took your first breath. The Bible says in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Do you understand what that means? Before your parents chose your name, before your first heartbeat, before time itself touched your life, you were chosen, set apart, marked for a divine assignment that the world has been waiting for you to step into. But here's what happened. The moment you began to awaken to this truth, the moment you started sensing that there was something more, something deeper, something beyond what your eyes could see, that's when the warfare intensified. That's when the attacks increased. That's when people started pulling away. Relationships started breaking, and everything that once felt stable began to shake. And you thought something was wrong with you. You thought maybe you had missed God. Maybe you had done something to lose His favor. Maybe the calling you felt was just your imagination. No, no, no. What you experienced was confirmation, because the enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't a threat. Darkness doesn't attack those who carry no light. Spiritual warfare doesn't intensify around those who have no divine assignment. The very fact that you've been through what you've been through, the very fact that you faced opposition that seemed relentless, attacks that seemed targeted isolation, that seemed orchestrated, that's not evidence of God's absence. That's evidence of your importance to His plan. Right now, I need you to do something. If this message is resonating in your spirit, if something inside you is saying yes, this is for me, I want you to type the number 99 in the comments, not because it's magic, not because it's a formula, but because it's a declaration, a signal to heaven that you're ready, that you're willing, that you're stepping into alignment with what God has been preparing you for during this season of silence. Hit that like button right now, not for me, but as an act of faith, as a declaration that you receive what heaven is releasing. Subscribe to this channel, because what I'm about to share with you over these next minutes is going to unlock something that's been locked inside you for years, and you need to be here for what's coming next. Because, chosen one, your moment has finally arrived. The whispers are becoming roars. The fog is lifting. And what you're about to see is going to change everything. Do you know what it feels like to pray and hear nothing back? Do you understand the weight of believing God has forgotten your name? Have you ever wondered if the silence means he's moved on to someone more worthy, someone more faithful, someone who didn't mess up as much as you did? Let me tell you something that's going to shatter everything you've believed about that silence. The silence was not abandonment. The silence was not punishment. The silence was not God turning his back on you while you cried out in the dark. The silence chosen one was divine positioning. And what I'm about to reveal is going to change how you see every single moment of waiting you've endured. When heaven goes silent, when the answers stop coming, when the breakthrough seems delayed beyond reason, the natural mind interprets this as rejection, as failure, as proof that maybe you were never really chosen at all. But here's the truth that will set you free. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not absency. Silence is the sound of God working behind the scenes in ways you cannot yet perceive. Think about this. When a master craftsman is forging a sword, does he explain every hammer strike to the metal? When the blacksmith places that raw iron into the furnace, does he apologize for the heat? No. Because he knows something the metal doesn't know yet. He knows that what feels like destruction is actually transformation. What feels like punishment is actually preparation. What feels like the end is actually the beginning of something stronger than it ever could have been without the fire. And you chosen one, you have been in the furnace. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 48:10, "See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction, not in the furnace of blessing, not in the season of ease, in the furnace of affliction." Because God doesn't waste your pain. Every single thing you've walked through, every betrayal, every loss, every moment, when you felt completely alone, it was shaping you, refining you, removing the impurities that would have kept you from carrying what's coming next. But here's where it gets deeper. The silence wasn't just about making you stronger. It was about alignment. It was about positioning you in a place where human effort couldn't take credit for what God was about to do. Because if the breakthrough had come when you first asked for it, you would have thought it was your strategy, your network, your ability that made it happen. But when it comes after the silence, after the waiting, after every door has been shut and every option exhausted, there's only one explanation. God did this, not you, Him. What if the delay wasn't denying you the blessing? What if the delay was protecting you from receiving something you weren't ready to steward? What if God loved you enough to make you wait until you were mature enough, strong enough, humble enough to handle what He's been preparing to release? His delays are not His denials. His silence is not His absence. His waiting periods are not wasted time. They are divine classrooms where He teaches you things you could never learn in the brightness of constant answered prayers. Think about Moses, 40 years in the wilderness before he could lead Israel out of Egypt. Think about Joseph, 13 years in slavery and prison before he became second in command. Think about David, years running from Saul, hiding in caves before he ever sat on the throne God had promised him. Were they abandoned? No. They were being prepared, and every prophet, every chosen vessel in Scripture went through a wilderness season where heaven seemed distant and the promises seemed dead. But here's what happened in that wilderness. God was stripping away everything that wasn't eternal. He was removing every false identity, every wrong motivation, every attachment that would have corrupted the calling. He was teaching them who they were when the crowds weren't there, when the miracles stopped flowing, when it was just them and Him in the silence. And that's exactly what He's been doing with you. You were never lost. You were never forgotten. You were never a mistake or an afterthought in God's plan. You were chosen deliberately, intentionally, specifically chosen for this exact moment in history. The silence was God shielding you from distractions while He downloaded the strategy. The isolation was Him separating you from voices that would have confused your calling. The closed doors were His protection from paths that would have derailed your destiny. Right now, if you're feeling this in your spirit, if something is breaking loose inside you, as you hear these words, I need you to type 99 in the comments. Type it as a declaration that you understand, that you're ready, that you're done. Seeing your waiting as wasted time, and you're stepping into the truth that you were being positioned. Because Chosen One, the wilderness season is over. The forging is complete. The positioning is done. And what's about to be revealed over your life is going to shock everyone who watched you wait. They're going to ask how it happened so fast. But you'll know the truth. It didn't happen fast. It happened right on time. Divine time. The spotlight is on you now. Heaven's attention is locked on your life and the shift you've been sensing. It's not your imagination, it's confirmation. Your moment has finally arrived. Have you ever felt like you're living in two worlds at once? Have you sensed something stirring in the spiritual realm that hasn't manifested in the natural yet? Do you feel like you're standing on the edge of something massive? Something that's about to break open, but you can't quite see it clearly enough to move? That fog, that spiritual haze that's been clouding your vision, it's lifting right now, in this very moment. And what you're about to see is going to explain everything. Every closed door, every betrayal, every loss, every moment when you thought you were going backward, it was all leading you here. Let me tell you something that's going to sound impossible. What hasn't moved in years, what's been stagnant, what's been stuck, what you've been praying over until your voice was hoarse. It's about to shift. Not in months, not in weeks, in days. Because prophetic timing doesn't operate on human calendars. When God says now, things that should take years happen in moments. There's been a divine countdown that started the moment you were born. Every experience, every trial, every season of preparation has been orchestrating toward this precise intersection of time and purpose. And right now, you're standing at that intersection. The fog is lifting. The blueprint is becoming visible. And what was hidden is being revealed. Think about Genesis 41. Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. One conversation, one interpretation, one divine moment, and everything shifted. But it wasn't just that day that made it happen. It was the 13 years of preparation, the slavery, the false accusations, the imprisonment. All of it was positioning him for one divine moment when Pharaoh would say, "Can we find anyone like this man? One in whom is the Spirit of God?" That's exactly where you are right now. Everything you've walked through, every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every moment when you felt invisible, it was all preparation. It was all building toward this moment when heaven says, "Now, this is the one, this is the time." The fog is lifting and you're beginning to see the path. Not the whole journey, not every step, but enough. Enough to take the next step. Enough to move forward in faith. Because here's what God does. He doesn't show you the entire blueprint at once. He shows you just enough to test your faith. Just enough to see if you'll move when you can only see one step ahead. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Did you catch that he will make your path straight? Not before you move, but as you move, as you step, as you trust him enough to walk forward, even when the path isn't fully visible. This isn't just another season of waiting. This is the prophetic announcement that your waiting season is over. The preparation is complete. The positioning is done. And now it's time to move. Because prophetic timing means that what should take years is compressed into days. What should require connections you don't have opens through divine appointments. What should be impossible becomes inevitable when God's timing aligns with your obedience. But here's where most people miss their moment. They wait for everything to be perfect. They wait for every detail to be clear. They wait for absolute certainty before they take the first step. And while they're waiting for perfect conditions, the moment passes. The door closes. The opportunity moves to someone else who is willing to move with incomplete information, but complete faith. What if your breakthrough isn't on the other side of more prayer? What if it's on the other side of obedience to what God already told you to do? What if the miracle isn't in the waiting, but in the moving? What if the divine shift you've been praying for requires you to shift first? James 2:17 says, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." Your faith has to have feet. Your prayers have to have movement. Your belief has to translate into behavior. Because God doesn't just want you to believe the promises. He wants you to act on them. Exodus 14:15-16 shows us this. God tells Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water. Move first, then the sea parts." The miracle doesn't happen before obedience. The miracle happens because of obedience. Right now, if you're ready to step into this prophetic moment, if you're done waiting for perfect conditions, and you're ready to move in faith, type "I'm moving" in the comments, not as a casual statement, as a declaration, as a prophetic announcement that you're no longer waiting for the path to be clear before you move. You're moving, and the path will clear as you go. Because chosen one, this is your moment. The fog has lifted. The blueprint is visible. The prophetic clock has struck midnight. And what hasn't moved in years is about to shift in days. But it requires you to move first. Your obedience triggers the breakthrough. Your movement activates the miracle. Your faith releases what heaven has been holding. The question is no longer when. The question is, will you? Will you step into this moment with bold faith? Because everything is about to change. What if I told you that the very thing holding you back isn't lack of faith, but fear disguised as wisdom? What if the hesitation you've been calling patience is actually disobedience dressed up in spiritual language? What if the moment you've been waiting for is already here, and the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your willingness to move? Let me tell you something that's going to shake everything you've believed about waiting. The miracle is in your movement, not in your meditation, not in your contemplation, not in your endless planning. The miracle activates when you take the first step, even when your knees are shaking, even when your mind is screaming that you're not ready, even when every logical thought tells you to wait just a little bit longer. The enemy has convinced believers that waiting is always holy. That hesitation is humility. That fear is discernment. And while they're sitting still calling it faith, opportunities are passing them by. Doors are closing. And the moment God ordained for them is being given to someone else who is willing to move with trembling faith. Think about Peter in Matthew 14. Jesus is walking on water, and Peter says, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus says one word, "Come." Not, "Wait until you feel ready." Not, "Practice walking on solid ground first." Just come. And what did Peter do? He got out of the boat in the middle of a storm with waves crashing around him, and he walked on water. Not because the conditions were perfect, but because he was willing to move when Jesus said, "Move." Yes, he started to sink when he took his eyes off Jesus. But he never would have experienced the miracle if he had stayed in the boat. He never would have walked on water if he had waited for the storm to pass. He never would have known what he was capable of if he had let fear keep him paralyzed. Your movement is your warfare. Every step you take in obedience is a declaration to the spiritual realm that you trust God more than you trust your circumstances. Every action you take in faith is a weapon against the enemy's strategy to keep you stuck. Every time you move forward, despite the fear, you're breaking chains not just for yourself, but for everyone watching your life. But here's where it gets deeper. There's a difference between striving and moving in faith. There's a difference between hustling in your own strength and stepping forward in divine confidence. And you need to understand this distinction, or you'll burn out before you ever reach your destiny. Rest is not quitting. Rest is not giving up. Real rest, spiritual rest, is releasing control while remaining in motion. It's trusting that your obedience is enough, and God will handle the outcome. It's knowing that you don't have to figure out every detail, you just have to follow the next instruction. Psalm 37:7 says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." But look at the context. It's about not fretting, not worrying, not trying to control things through human manipulation. It's about resting in God's timing while you're actively doing what He told you to do. It's about peace in the process, not paralysis in the preparation. And here's what happens when you learn to move with divine rest. When you step forward in faith, but release the outcome to God, miracles start flowing effortlessly. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Connections form that you never could have orchestrated. Provision appears from sources you never expected. Because when you move in faith with a surrendered heart, you're no longer operating in human effort. You're partnering with divine power. Your rest becomes your weapon, not the rest of inactivity. The rest of trust, the rest of knowing that if God said it, He'll do it. This is the kind of rest that confuses the enemy. Because how do you attack someone who's moving forward but not stressed? How do you discourage someone who's working hard but not worried? How do you stop someone who's taking massive action but resting in divine confidence? What bold step has God been telling you to take that you've been avoiding? What conversation have you been putting off? What business have you been afraid to start? What relationship have you been too scared to end? That thing you're afraid of, that's exactly where your breakthrough is hiding. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. He goes with you, not ahead of you so far that you can't see Him, with you, step by step, moment by moment, right now. If you're ready to step into divine boldness, if you're ready to move in faith, even though you're afraid, if you're ready to embrace the power of surrender while taking massive action, type "I choose boldness" in the comments. Declare it, announce it. Let heaven hear that you're done letting fear make your decisions. Because, chosen one, your boldness isn't arrogance. Your confidence isn't pride. Your willingness to move forward despite fear isn't presumption. It's faith in action. And that faith, that movement, that divine boldness, it's about to unlock everything you've been praying for. The question is simple. Will you move because everything changes the moment you do? Do you know what the enemy fears most about you? Do you understand why he's worked so hard to keep you confused about who you really are? Have you ever wondered why the attacks have been so focused on your identity, your worth, your purpose? Because he knows something you're just beginning to discover. You are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are not the sum of your mistakes or your past. You are branded by God. And that brand, that divine marking, carries authority that terrifies every force of darkness that has ever come against you. Let me show you something that's going to change how you see yourself forever. When a rancher brands his cattle, it's not decoration. It's a declaration of ownership. It's a mark that says, "This belongs to me," Touch this, and you answer to me. And chosen one, that's exactly what God has done with you. He didn't just create you. He branded you. He marked you with his signature. He stamped his authority on your life. And every demon in hell recognizes that mark, even when you don't. Isaiah 43:1 says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine." Did you catch that? You are mine. Not maybe. Not if you get it right. You are his, present tense, right now. With all your flaws, all your questions, all your doubts, you belong to him. And that belonging changes everything. But here's what happened. The enemy has been running a campaign against your identity since the day you were born. Every rejection, every betrayal, every moment of shame, every whisper that told you that you weren't enough, and it was all designed to make you forget whose you are. Because if he can get you to see yourself as broken, as a victim, as damaged beyond repair, then he can keep you from walking in the power that's already inside you. You are a warrior, not a victim. And I need you to hear this. Your story doesn't define you. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Your mistakes don't diminish the calling on your life. Because God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And every battle you've faced, every wound you've carried, every scar you bear, it's not evidence of your weakness. It's proof of your strength. It's testimony that you survived what was meant to destroy you. Think about Gideon in Judges 6. The angel appears to him and says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." But Gideon is hiding in a winepress, afraid, convinced he's the weakest member of the weakest clan. He doesn't see himself as a warrior. He sees himself as a victim. But God didn't call him based on how he saw himself. God called him based on who he created him to be. And the moment Gideon stepped into that identity, everything changed. That's exactly what's happening right now. Heaven is declaring over you what you haven't been able to see in yourself. Heaven is calling forth the warrior, the leader, the voice, the instrument of change that's been hidden beneath layers of doubt and fear. This is your divine awakening. This is the moment when you stop accepting labels the world put on you and start walking in the identity God stamped on you before time began. You are not meant to blend in. You were created to stand out. And I know what you're thinking, but I'm not special. I'm not talented enough. I'm not educated enough. And you're right. In your own strength, you're not. But that's the whole point. God doesn't choose people who are already qualified, because then they'd take credit for what he's about to do. He chooses broken vessels so that when the miracle happens, everyone knows it was him. 2 Corinthians 4:7 says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." You're not disqualified because you're flawed. You're chosen because your flaws make it obvious that the power flowing through you isn't yours. It's his. And here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about you feeling better. This is about activation. This is about stepping into a mission that the world is waiting for you to fulfill. There are people who won't hear the message unless you deliver it. There are lives that won't be changed unless you walk into your calling. There are destinies on hold waiting for you to step into yours. The world is waiting for you to rise. Not the perfect version of you, not the polished has-it-all-together version. The real you, the scarred you, the battle-tested you. Because that's the version that carries power. That's the version that carries testimony. That's the version that can look someone else in the eye who's going through hell and say, I know, I've been there. And if God brought me through, He'll bring you through too. Right now, if this message has awakened something in you, if you're ready to step fully into your divine identity, I need you to do two things. First, type, I am branded in the comments. Declare it. Own it. Let heaven and earth hear that you know who you are now. Second, share this video, because there's someone in your life who needs to hear this message. Someone who's forgotten who they are. Someone who's been living like a victim when they're actually a warrior. Be the one who reminds them. Because, chosen one, your identity isn't just revealed, it's activated, and everything is about to change. Can you feel it? Can you sense the shift that's happening in this very moment? Do you realize that everything, absolutely everything in your life has been leading you to this precise intersection of time and eternity? You have waited. You have endured. You have pressed through seasons that would have broken others. You have held on when every voice told you to let go. You have believed when the evidence screamed otherwise. And now, right now, you step into the moment you were built for. Because God has been building you, shaping you, forging you into exactly who you need to be for what's about to unfold. This is not just another season. This is not just another chapter. This is divine acceleration. This is the moment when years of preparation compress into days of manifestation. This is when everything that seemed impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. This is when doors that were locked for years swing wide open. This is when favor finds you in unexpected places. This is when the blueprint that's been hidden in the fog finally comes into full crystal clear view. And I need you to understand something. That blueprint, that divine design for your life, it's been there all along. Every piece, every detail, every instruction. But God doesn't reveal the entire blueprint at once, because you'd be overwhelmed by the magnitude of what He's called you to do. So, He reveals it, line upon line, step by step. And right now, more of that blueprint is becoming visible than ever before. You're not just seeing the next step anymore. You're beginning to see the purpose behind all the steps you've already taken. You're beginning to understand why certain doors closed, why certain people left, why certain seasons felt so dark. Because every closed door was protecting you from a path that would have delayed your destiny. Every person who walked away was making room for divine connections you couldn't have received if they had stayed. Every dark season was downloading wisdom you couldn't have gained in the light. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God doesn't say He's making the plans. He says He knows the plans. Present tense. They already exist. Your destiny isn't being written as you go. It was written before you took your first breath. Your calling isn't being figured out. It was established in eternity past. And everything you've walked through has been aligning you with what's already been decreed. But here's the shift. You're no longer passive in this process. You're no longer just waiting for things to happen to you. You are now an active participant in your destiny. You are now a co-laborer with heaven. You are now stepping into divine authority, where your words carry weight, your prayers shift atmospheres, and your obedience triggers breakthrough not just for you, but for everyone connected to your calling. Because chosen one, this moment is bigger than you. This breakthrough isn't just for your benefit. This activation isn't just about your personal victory. Everything God is releasing over your life right now is designed to impact generations. Your children, their children, people you haven't even met yet, nations you haven't even visited, destinies connected to yours in ways you can't yet comprehend. Think about Abraham. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars. But that promise wasn't just about Abraham having a big family. It was about nations being blessed through his lineage. It was about a Messiah coming through his bloodline. It was about redemption for all humanity flowing through one man's obedience. And Abraham didn't see most of that in his lifetime. But he stepped forward in faith anyway. And thousands of years later, we're still experiencing the fruit of his obedience. That's the level you're operating on now. That's the weight of what you carry. And I know that might feel overwhelming. But in your own strength, you're not. But in partnership with God, you're unstoppable. In alignment with heaven, you're irresistible. Walking in your divine calling, you're a force that hell itself cannot stop. Philippians 4:13 declares, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not some things, not easy things, all things. Every assignment, every calling, every impossible situation. You can do it because you're not doing it alone. You're doing it through Christ, who is literally pouring his strength into you right now. So, here's what I need you to do. In the comments below, type these words, I step into my destiny. Not as a casual statement, as a prophetic declaration, as a binding agreement between you and heaven that you're done waiting for perfect conditions. You're done making excuses. You're done letting fear write your story. You're stepping into everything God prepared for you, and nothing is going to stop you. And then take one bold step today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. One action that aligns with what God has been speaking to your spirit. One move that demonstrates faith. One step that proves you believe what you just declared. Because faith without works is dead, and declarations without action are just empty words. The world is waiting for you. Future generations are waiting for you. The fullness of your destiny is waiting for you. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your season of divine acceleration. Now rise and never look back.